Gamers, we're back with another emergency tier list. Why is it emergency tier list? Because French is no longer the worst civ in the game. Let's go. We're getting French all the way to S tier, boys. So, let's get started. Let's get started with the obvious ones and some less obvious ones. Disclaimer. This is a serious message. This civ tier list is for top level gameplay, and it in no way, shape or form influence your games in bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, conquer 1, conquer 2, or even low conquer 3. I am making this tier list because people want me to, and it's for entertainment purposes only, even though it's true. Thank you. I changed my mind in all seriousness quite a bit, I think, maybe, compared to previous civ tier lists, and here it is. I mean, you know what I mean? It's good. It's good. But, is it S tier? That's what I want to know. Is it S tier? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The next civilization that is also in the S tier. No surprise here. Byzantine. I mean, there's been no patch and they're still, you know, probably the strongest civ. There was 2 tournaments, I think, since the last tier list, and they've been banned in like every single game in the tournament. So, amazing. Great job. Love that. Hopefully nerfed soon. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, hold your horses, Ottoman. Now, I don't think Ottoman is terrible, right? I just think that it is quite nerfed and you can definitely feel it, but it's just slow, right? But if you do get to Imperial, it's fucking S tier. But getting there is a little bit of a problem. So, I think Ottoman is alright. There was actually a reverse tournament recently where you pick your opponent's civ. And a lot of people were picking Ottoman for their opponents. I think a lot of people consider them even worse than I do. I think a lot of people consider them like C tier. But I'm gonna give them a B tier. I don't think they're that bad. Next civilization we'll be discussing is going to be Deli. I'm gonna put Deli here for now. I think the biggest problem with Deli is just how few maps it's played on, and I think recently it's been like harder and harder to win with Deli, I feel like. I don't know if it's the civs or what, but it doesn't seem as strong anymore as it used to be. I still love Deli and I'll play it in tournaments and stuff, but yeah, like the matchup that was like very favored for Deli in the past has been English, but I don't think it's that good for Deli anymore. Like, I actually prefer to be English in that matchup. Next civilization we'll be talking about is HRE, and I'm gonna have to bump HRE a little bit. There's been a playstyle with HRE that kind of came through. I think it came through with this like aggressive HRE playstyle where you kind of slowly add a farm here and there, add a farm here and there, and you do fight, but then you can age up really quickly, or you can just do a castle rush. And I find this out to be very strong and pretty hard to deal with if you don't know how to deal with it. So, HRE, I love it. I love it. The next civ we'll be talking about is going to be Jushi's Legacy. And I'm gonna have to put, I'll put Jushi's Legacy in C tier. I think it's pretty one-dimensional. Currently it plays very, very similar to China, and I feel like I would just play China rather than Jushi Legacy. Jushi Legacy also has a lot of bad matchups where I'm just like, well, I guess I lose kind of thing. If you get to Imperial, you know, just like China, it's okay, but it's a struggle bus to get there. So I'm gonna give it a C tier. Ayubid, S tier. This civ is still considered one of the strongest civs. You know, with the castle rush, you can also be aggressive and feudal. And I think that the strongest part about AOE4 is the fact that you can be aggressive, you can castle rush, but even if you're playing against 2TC, you will still have same amount of workers as them because of the economy wing. I think that probably needs to get nerfed, because a civ should not be 1 TC and then somehow end up on the same amount of villagers as you, or even sometimes ahead, while being aggressive or while castle rushing. So I think the economy wing for AOE4 is a bit too strong. Like maybe even something like nerf it where, you know, you don't get 8 workers, but you get like 2 workers or 1 worker and then 1 worker and then 1 worker up to 8. You know, like every 30 seconds you get a worker or something. I think just the pop of 8 workers is too strong. It boosts your economy and it's just too strong. Now we have an addition of a new entry to the S tier civilization. A civ we have not quite seen in a very long time in that S tier. Very, very long time. I don't actually remember when the last time was. And that civ is English. Fuck me, English is strong. And I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think either King or White Tower need a nerf. I think the King is so oppressive. It is absolutely fucking insane. Like, they need to add production time on it or something. Like, the first King that comes out way too quick. You can get your second TC and kill their workers at the same time, which is like, you get a huge upper hand from the get-go. So I think that's something they could nerf for English. Or they could nerf the White Tower. The White Tower in the current meta, basically the meta is you go King, you go 2TC, and then you go White Tower and you're immune to damage. I think the White Tower is really strong. And I don't ever see a point in going King's Palace. Ever. I think White Tower is just better. It protects your food line, it protects your gold. You can make siege out of it. Like, if enemies mass ranged units, you can just make a mangonel. If the enemy is doing whatever, you know, you can instantly make a counter out of it. It basically works as 2 barracks or 2 archer ranges or 2 stables or 2 siege workshops, which is just, it's very good. And it garrisons 20, which is another thing that could be nerfed. You know, instead of garrisoning 20, it could garrison 10 villagers. Because right now you put White Tower in between your farms and you're like, alright, yeah, I'm immune to damage right now. So I think it's quite strong and it's quite annoying to play against English. Because you can just camp in from feudal to all the way to imperial under White Tower, and it's kind of crazy. The next civilization I'll be talking about, and we have a new entry, and I know this will be controversial. And you know what? I don't care, because everyone's wrong. Well, if you're a gold league, like you're wrong from the get-go. But if you are a high-level player and you disagree with me on this, you know, I always say, listen, people have, you know, different opinions sometimes. Someone thinks this save is good, someone thinks this save sucks. It sucks. I hate it. It's shit. For the first time ever, we have a D tier entry for this civilization, and it is JD. Now, I can hear the screeches all the way from Bronze League right now. No, she's level 4 at 9 minutes into the game, and then she one-shots my town center. Okay, Bloomer. It sucks. Okay? I've been playing JD because I've been playing random on one of my accounts, and every time I play with or against JD, I just don't see the point of this civilization. I don't see what is my advantage. What am I going for here? What is happening? And I don't understand. It came to a point where I would rather play French than JD, and that's a bit crazy. I think the nerf they did recently kind of... She used to be like a B tier or C tier. I feel like the recent nerf where Blacksmith doesn't give +1 damage anymore, just like straight kicked her in the nuts. Even though, you know, you know what I mean. Because now her knights don't 2-shot villagers anymore. So like opening knight harassment is just not as good anymore. And basically the way that, so the difference between JD and French used to be a macro civ, and JD used to be like aggression, and you level up and you fucking go for it, and you're casting spells like Harry Potter, and you know, amazing. Now, she's been nerfed so many times that she is now played 2TC, right? If I'm playing her 2TC, the question rises, why wouldn't I just play French? Because I have faster villager production. Yes, she has consecration, but it's not as good as faster villager production early in the game, in my opinion. I'd rather just play French. That's it. That's all I gotta say for that. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be Beastyqt. A tier. Very strong. Love it. Not quite S tier. I think there's some weaknesses. I think these civs, it's kind of like they have it all, you know? I think China is very, very good. Barbican is very, very strong. It allows you to do a lot of things. But it's just a very, you know, not mediocre, but it's just a good civ. That's it. Let's do let's do I'm gonna do another bold move actually. And this might shock you. B tier. Actually, I don't know if it will shock you. I think the last time I put it also in B tier. Mongol is very, very matchup dependent civ. Like some matchups, you have like the upper hand and you're just pushing the advantage. But the moment you lose that advantage, I feel like it's just like a, you know, not having the walls and stuff is kind of rough. But some matchups are really good for you. You dictate the tempo, and then some matchups you're just like, I don't even know what you're supposed to do, you know. Like for example, Mongol versus English used to be very Mongol favored. But these days, like what does Mongol do against English? You can't tower rush them, so you go fast age up and then you trade. By the time you start trading, English is already on 2TC and crapping on your trade with King. And then as you got Keshiks out, there's like longbow spearmen coming out as well. I don't know. I don't think it fares well against the top civs right now. Like Mongol versus Rus is very bad. Byzantine versus Mongol. I don't think it's good for Mongol, although I did lose recently this matchup because I omega through. Ayubid versus Mongol is pretty good for Ayubid. I just don't think it has many good matchups. And like I said, even the ones that it does have are just very tempo based. But it does put a lot of pressure. So the next civ we'll be discussing is going to be Abbasid, A tier. Abbasid, very solid. It's very similar to China, except instead of a Barbican, you can be a little bit aggressive with military wing. And I've actually been testing a little bit Abbasid 1TC into Castle Rush. So you know how Ayubid plays? I literally did that with Abbasid, where I go military wing, like military wing with Ayubid, into aggression into Castle Rush, and it actually worked. Surprisingly, I killed an English player recently in Feudal as Abbasid. So, very, very diverse civilization, I feel like. You can play it a lot of different ways. Even if you go 2TC, there's like still other ways you can play it. So, yeah. The next civ we'll be talking about is going to be Malian. I love Malian. Okay, we're gonna have to change it like that. I need another tier. Malian, B tier. I have to put it like this. I cannot put Deli and Malian together with Ottoman and Mongol. I just can't. But I cannot put Deli and Malian with H or China and Abbasid. I can't. So I have to do it like this. So we got an XD tier, which is a new tier. JXD, right. The reason for that is, again, I feel Deli is still strong, but it's so tempo based and it's so one-dimensional, I can't give it an A tier because I feel like a lot of people are very good at fighting Deli. And Malian has quite a few counters, but it's still very strong civ, and if you don't do damage to them, they get out of hand real quick. So we're gonna go with that. The next Civ might surprise you. It might shock you. Or it might not. I think OTD is not as bad as we thought, but it's also not as good. So we're gonna put it into D tier. Okay, so OTD, I've been trying out stuff. I think there's potential for OTD, okay? I think there's potential it goes up. I think it's still not fully explored. I think there's still some styles that can be happening and some things that can be played. Today, I had a game, OTD versus Deli, and I didn't die, which was a big improvement. But then I made a big mistake and then I did die. But I feel every time I play OTD, it used to be like, I don't know what I could do, to now like, oh, if I did this, I think I would have won or I would have survived. Do they need a buff? I mean, probably. I would personally like if OTD just gets a small buff in their unit cost, as in, instead of spearmen costing 120 food, make it cost 110. You know, instead of a horseman costing 240, make it cost, or I don't know how much horseman costs actually. Like, just reduce it by like 5% or something. Because I think, again, I've talked about this before, but their unit stats are not double, okay? Their units are not twice as good, but they take twice as much supply and they cost twice as much. They're just not good because of that. And that's the biggest issue with OTD units. They cost double, but they're not twice as good. That's pretty much it. So I think their units should not be twice as expensive as normal units. But I do see potential of OTD going here. I do see it. I do see it. I'm going to keep cooking and we'll see what we come up with. And it has some good matchups. It's very good against Night Civs. Although Night Civs are not very good right now, except Rus, I guess. But, you know. The next civilization we'll be talking about. This is a hard one. I don't know where to put Japanese. I honestly feel like they're B tier, but I'm not very good with them. So I want to put them in C tier, but I feel like they're better than C tier. You know what I mean? That being said, I'm going to put Japanese BC tier. I think Japanese is not bad, okay? Like, if I look at these civs, I would rather play Japanese than Mongol or OTD or JD or Jushi Legacy or Ottoman, even though I'm not very good with it. And I think a lot of other players are a lot better at Japanese than I am. I think people are also learning. Like, people used to go Castle Rush and then just spam units and hope it works. Now people know how to transition. And Japanese in Imperial is actually fucking insane. So I'm gonna go with B tier. It might be C, but let's go with B tier. And last but not least, we have French. Now let me tell you, I've been playing French. And I've been playing French against some high-level opponents. 100% win rate. I've been putting French into D tier forever. But I have to say that French, I have changed my mind. French is now C tier. Let's go. Let's go. We see some movement. We're seeing some movement. And you know what I'm gonna say right now? French has moved out of the D tier. But, okay, technically, listen, if there was no 6 tiers, I would put him in B tier. No kappa. But, let's talk about this. Okay, why do I think it's C tier, first of all? I think the meta has changed to 2TC quite a lot. And going French 2TC, you have an advantage. If you're 2TC versus 2TC, you have an advantage because your villagers are producing faster. I think the night harassment is really good still. And not everyone plays French anymore at the high level. So I feel like when you go knights and harass, people are a little bit, you know, pegging left and right. So, the civs that I could see potentially changing up or down. I think Delhi could potentially be A tier. I think Japanese in the future could potentially be better. I think Malian is here. Malian has a lot of counters, and I think that's the biggest issue with Malian. I think French next time might be B tier. I'm not even kidding. Because of the meta changing, I think it might be B tier. And another reason is the civs that are very good against French are actually not played anymore as much. So civs that are very good against French are civs like Ottoman, like Mongol, like OTD, Malian. All those civs are pretty good against French, but they're not really played as much. And whenever, you know, sometimes it doesn't take any balance changes for a civ to do better. It just sometimes requires meta changes and which civs are picked and stuff like that. Like, it used to be that in tournaments, even when Mongol wasn't good, it was always picked. But these days, Mongol is not really picked that often. Ottoman is not picked that often. And those two matchups are really, really bad for French. So, yeah. And I'm not, yeah, like AOE4 is great against French, but I'm not counting any of these because any of the S tier civs, in my opinion, have an advantage over the other ones. But I played French versus Rus against Louis recently, and I won as French. And it felt pretty good. Like, the matchup felt pretty good. So, yeah, out of all people, I can't believe that I'm the one that's, you know, putting in the good word for French Civ, but there it is. I think it could go higher. I also think that OTD could go higher, and because, like I said, there's some things that I'm trying out that people are trying out, figuring out. So I am assuming, I don't know, that we're gonna have a balance patch soon. I don't know when the season is ending, actually. When is it ending? June 19th. Yeah, so next month, you know, every season we have a balance patch, so I'm assuming that at the end of June we'll have a balance patch. And again, I got no info, but I would imagine that AOE4, Byzantine for sure are gonna get slapped with a nerf. OTD, hopefully we'll get some love. French maybe, we'll see. But that's it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, disclaimer, this tier list is not why you're losing games, okay? It's not. I know you think it is, but it's not. Thank you. YouTube gamers, check me out on Twitch. We're probably live right now. We got Otter Totter right here live. Okay, she doesn't care. And Twitch gamers, let's keep going.